Hi, I'm Alice Boll from scraphappy.org, and I'm going to show you how I took this 6x6 template from Catherine Pooler Designs, the Twisted Sunburst, and I turned it into a 12 by 12 layout. It turned out so good. I'm so happy, and I can't wait to show you my tricks on how I did it. I started off by gathering my supplies. I found some cardstock that matched the paper. It's from My Mind's Eye called Hello Gorgeous. And I set aside the things that I wasn't going to need immediately. So I put aside the photo and the journaling. I placed the template over the spot where my photo was going to be. And that way the sunburst would kind of spread out from behind my photo. And then instead of tracing every single line and every single part, I just picked every other part of the template to trace. And then I took this ruler that I have. It's called a ruler, but it's for sewing. So it's flexible and you can bend it and turn it. And so once I set the angle of my turns, then I just extended all of the lines that I drew from the template out from that center point to the edges of the paper. And if you saw the lines on the paper already before I'm demoing this, it's because my video turned off and I just restarted it. So that's what we're doing. But that's how I drew all of the lines. So they extended all the way to the edges of the page and kept that nice same arch shape for the whole starburst, or sunburst, I mean. And if you don't happen to have one of those rulers, you can definitely do this without having one of them, but it sure makes it easy to get the nice curve angle that you're looking for. What I would do is draw one of the angles the way I want it to be, and then I would use an extra piece of paper to make a template in that arch shape, and then just use that template as a guide to go around. But, you know, if you have something that's like this, even better. At this point, I put my 3 layers of my cardstock paper. I was going to use the floral as a base, but I have yellow, pink, and blue, and I wanted to have them all have the exact same cuts without doing all the work. So I actually taped the 3 layers down together to my craft mat, and then I took my craft blade and I started cutting through the layers. Now, you will see later that I didn't quite make it all the way through the 3rd layer, but as I was repeating the cuts, I was kind of making a bit of a mess, I noticed on the first one, and I thought instead of making a mess, I'll just cut through the layers as best as I can, and then I'll go back with my scissors and just fix up any parts that didn't cut properly. And so that's what I did here. And once that part was ready and all of the little pieces were cut out towards the centers, then it was time to start assembling them into the page. And I thought this would be the easiest way to make this happen without having to deal with lots of little pieces and trying to line everything up. We're just going to stack the centers. So you can see the little parts in the middle of that starburst or the sunburst that I haven't cut. We're going to put adhesive on those and line them up. So I put my floral paper down as the base, and then I glue that very center of that starburst on the yellow down to the floral paper. And then from there, I'm kind of playing to see which parts I'm going to want to see from that background pattern, right? I want to see large chunks of the florals, otherwise that would be really sad. So I decided which pieces of the yellow I was going to pull out so I could see my background. Next, I put adhesive on top of the pink, and then I did the same thing. I pulled off the parts so I could see down to the floral, and then I layered the blue over top, and I layered that down so I could see all the way back down to the floral. So I definitely have a big stack, a little sandwich of paper right here. So I started at the bottom with that yellow layer, and I decided I was going to keep the center one of those 3 pieces as the yellow. So I pulled off all of the layers of the pink and blue that sat above the yellow layers. And then I wanted the pink to be kind of to the left of the yellow and the blue to be to the right of the yellow. And I just pulled off the extra layers. And then when I looked at this, I just thought, geez, I just don't see enough of that floral pattern paper. So to solve that problem, I decided to cut little strips off of each of the yellow and blue pieces, just kind of keeping that same arch line. And I just did it with my scissors. It's all good. It's nice and smooth, and it turned out really good. So I just cut those little bits off of all of the yellow and blue bits. And now you can see those little skinny parts of that archway, and man, that has turned out so good. So then I start by putting my adhesive and sticking all of those pieces, which are a little bit mobile still right now, sticking them all down. Once all of the sunburst pieces are attached to the background floral paper, then it's time to assemble my layout. I made this page as part of the Load 220 Memories Managed Challenge. It's the Layout a Day challenge, and it was inspired by Harry Potter. My prompt was inspired by the Philosopher's Stone, and the Philosopher's Stone can turn any metal into gold, and it can also produce the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal. So we were talking about a story prompt of living forever or growing old and life changes, maybe scrapbooking about an older person in your life. And for technique, we were supposed to use old or vintage supplies from our stash or photos from different times that show change. I decided to scrapbook about my grandmother, and I kept a theme of as I grow older. And I started each of my 3 paragraphs with that phrase. I talked a little bit about my grandmother and how when I was a kid I thought she was old, but now I realize that she was only really 59 years old when she passed away. And now my mom is actually going to turn 62 this year. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you that, but there you go. You heard it here. And as I'm 42 years old, my whole concept of what's old has really changed in time. I also talk about the pursuit of a happy life and, the example that I'm hoping that I'm setting for my kids. And finally, I talk about how as I grow older, I think about the mark that we leave on the world and how my hope is that my presence helps to make everyone else's day a little brighter, a little more sunny, and a little more happy. I played around with a few different options for thicker titles, and I finally chose this scripty one. And I went with the title As I Grow Older, since I was going to start each of my paragraphs with that phrase. My next great dilemma was deciding on the placement of my journaling part. I moved it to the left, I moved it to the right, I moved it to the center, and I moved it all everywhere in between. But I think in the end, I decided that I wanted to have it in the center of the page, but it'll take a while before it ends up there. Then I pulled out the Sunny Days collection from Maggie Holmes. These are embossed die cut sheets and they're golden and they're designed to be cut apart and used in different ways. And I've had these in my stash for a while, as well as that floral paper that's been in my stash for a while. So it was time to get them used, and they're super beautiful. So why haven't I used them yet? Well, I've got lots of options. That's probably partly why. But so I cut them apart, and then I fiddled with which pieces I was going to use, and I moved them around a million times until I finally found the place that I wanted them to stay. And then I decided that the page just needed a little bit more detail, a little bit more gold maybe. So I found these Bow Bunny foil transfers. They are gold accents and they work so good. They go onto a page so easily. And I added some of those, I kind of cut them apart and I snuck some under both ends of the journaling and then up around the top of the corner of the photo. And it just added this extra little bit of shiny texture and stuff. And it was perfect just in the way that it added different layers of dimension with the shine and everything. I finished the layout by adding some foam tape underneath those Maggie Holmes embellishments, and then the page was done. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing the way I created this sunburst effect, the twisted sunburst effect, using that little 6x6 template as a guide. And if you've made a sunburst page before, I'd love to know your tips, so please share them with everyone in the comments below. My challenge to you would be to create a page about growing older or use the sunburst effect. And if you'd like to learn more about the Load Challenge or the ScrapHappy membership group, please come on over to scraphappy.org and check it out. We do a layout a day challenge every February, May, and October, and we have so many more fun activities in between. And because we're an online membership group, we're perfect no matter where you live or what type of scrapping you do. Find out more at scraphappy.org. Happy scrapping!